My job try and steal it from you.
Welcome everybody to sources tonight. Happy New Year to all of you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Okay. Do we have anybody for the public sector? Thank you. Okay. Right. Got any apologies?
I'll make them join the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Are we happy to accept Councillor Collins's apologies?
Yeah.
Declarations of interest, anybody?
In fact, we all pay council tax.
Yeah. Okay, item 3 minutes of last meeting. They will be presented at the next meeting. Minutes of the communication strategy group. They were circulated previously. Item 5 budget. In 5.1, we've got the income and expenditure report, appendix A. So I'll go by the number in the top left hand corner. So we're starting at 3 of 37. Right down. So 3 of 37. Adam?
Yeah, can we just get some clarification around the HR advice? I see that it's been said to be part accrued at year end. I didn't understand that bit and how that's.
I can't hear you properly.
Oh,
Sorry.
I do apologise. That's 4025 HR advice.
It's because we pay that contract annually rather than in line with the financial year. So part of that we paid for this financial year, but it will be agreed when we take it out next year.
Right.
So it's not an overspend, it's just that they invoiced us, they've invoiced us annually.
Is that the same thing that affects 4041 website? Because I see that's quite low this time of the year.
Yes, we've got some bills where we need to come in and did bring that costs down on that, something that came up in CSG. We were expecting when we told that it was coming in less than we expected at this time.
Thank you.
Page 4. Adam?
It's 4016. It's legal costs, so we've gone quite over on that one.
We had a chunk of money we expected to be billed for the legal costs for the cemetery, which we accepted for last financial year, but they did not bill us until this financial year. So that number next to it, the transfer to from EMR, is for that money that was transferred from previous financial year.
Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, at least it's lower than what other people are paying in legal costs and budget, so that's good. But that was budgeted for. Just do we likely to get to next budget? Is that something we're going to have to accrue? Will that drift away? That legal cost?
No, we had it budgeted, it was all agreed last financial year, it's just that we didn't get the.
It's just that we haven't spent it, or we're spending it as we are, yeah.
Well, it has been spent, and it just didn't come until this year.
Page 5. Six. Adam?
I just want to find out 1026. I see the accrual is quite low than what's budgeted. Is there a reason for that?
Sorry, say that again.
It's 1026.
Yep.
So what we're expecting to come in is lower than what's come in some of the year. So is there a reason for that?
No, it's about right. I'm expecting it to come in.
It's all going to come in.
Yeah, it's about right. I mean, I can't guarantee because obviously it depends on the flow of rentals, but that's about where it should be.
And when you look at 1035, the tennis court, nothing's coming for that at all.
It will be an annual invoice, so it's possibly an invoice. I can double check.
It goes through the chair. I think there's lots of things like that. Shambles Park, they're annuals, and so like the Bowls Club, it's an annual thing. Agreed contract with them, and by the end of it, they've taken what we've taken what we expect, and they've delivered what we expect. So they are annual. They've sort of discussed regularly, environment committee, so they are monitored.
Can I just clarify, is it accounting annual or calendar annual?
It'll be a financial year.
Financial year.
We run on financial year.
7.
Just one thing there, just that, like everybody else, 4602, prices increase on electric, but nothing we can do about that. At the moment, and that's just how it is. But just note that we have got a price increase like everybody else in the country.
Page 8.
I think that's brilliant.
What?
I don't think it's fine.
Page 9.
Same goes to that.
Page 10. Page 11. And then we have the purchase ledger from December for next week.
Only one big expenditure we would check, which is in there, which sewage Shambles Park, which is worth noting, but it's in part the environment committee discussed, but it is the largest figure there, just to note. Do apart from repair.
Because of its life anyway, and it's obviously suffered some show flooding. Yeah, it needs doing so.
Right, page 13. Okay. Item 6, budget and reset. We've got a report from Claire. Recommended that members agree to send a attached budget to the reset meeting. Robert.
I'd just like to thank the town clerk for
Yeah.
the work she's done. That she's managed to bring this in with no substantial cuts, which is to a credit, and to recommend that we recommend the figure to the preset meeting for determination.
Yes. Jane.
Yeah, hi. I just would like to hear from the clerk her thoughts on item 3.1. I must say, I'm not familiar with how councils plan their money, but I haven't seen something like that before, where there's been an underspend and you sort of hold it in a little bubble for the next year. I can imagine that obviously clerk will want to recruit and fill her staff, but to actually then have an extra pot of money seems to sound as if she's perhaps wanting to increase the staff. So I just wanted to know her thinking behind that, because I'm sure it's done with prudence, but I can't quite understand it yet.
There are a couple of, well, there's two different things there. We hold a number of EMRs for the underspend. That's quite a prudent thing to do. So we know we've got all these playground assets. We know that we're going to need to replace and repair them in 3 or 4 years' time. We need to start building up an EMR in order to be able to do that. What we do with, well, what we are doing with staffing, and we started that last year, is giving ourselves a little bit of a float. So I don't know what the pay increase is going to be for our staff next year. So I've also guessed, but that's basically what I've done. I'm obviously knowing who's going out in increments, I know where we are now. But I don't know what the pay rise will be. Having a small, reasonable size float there will just help us. It means I don't feel tempted to over budget for staffing. Because I know that if it turns out to be 2.9 rather than 3.2 or 3.1, that there is a little bit of flex there for this council with bit handles. Likewise, if we suddenly have a number of staff decide that, a member of staff who's got maternity, we've got floats in order to be able to get somebody into cover. There are all manner of staffing things, contingencies that can happen and having issues.
So it's an HR contingency fund, not a new member of staff fund.
Well, there is, they're not included in that. I have looked, by this committee, put budgets aside to look at an additional staff member will be included in my working as requested by the committee when I wasn't there last time.
Thank you.
Robin, first and Howard.
Yeah, I mean, question is a fair question, but the reality is that we've discussed staffing in this committee on numerous occasions and numerous reports have come forward. So we shouldn't be surprised that and people do have the right to go off on maternity leave. Fortunately, we still keep that right in this country. And it's quite normal for us to run that. That has been the same for ever since. Where the staffing levels land will be based upon the report from the town clerk based on the agreements of this committee, which has gone through council. So we'll get a chance to discuss that, but we don't generally discuss staff, individual staff. Then we'll get our chance to discuss it at that point.
Literally what Claire just says.
Was it? Well, that's good. That means even I was listening, or we think exactly the same.
I'm going to give you some work.
Either I was listening or my brain works the same as Claire's, whichever way you want to take it, it's compliment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Howard.
Yeah, I would just put it into reserves. I wouldn't have it earmarked. So, your flexibility. About the money side of it. If it's in reserves, you can use it for staff, you can use it for anything else. But once it's in earmarked reserves, it can't be used for anything else. It restricts your flexibility at any moment in time.
I certainly understand your point. My feeling or reason for putting it in an earmarked reserve is it's basically pulled that money, that's what we think we may or may not use it. If we wanted to use it for something else in the future, members may make that decision just because it is in our reserve to start in this time. What we're saying is this pool of money, that's what it's there for. If we had a catastrophe next year and we decided that we wanted to use it for something else, members would be able to change that. That is different.
It could move it out of the not based on that staff, because once it's been put into earmarked reserves for staff costs, and it has to be used for that purpose.
If council, and it would be a member full council, not to be delegated, decided that they would take on services, so they could do that.
That's the reason.
Yes. There was an extreme good reason council could make a decision.
Those feel really system and stuff as well. I can understand the sentiment behind it. I don't think it's worth doing.
I don't want to pull money unnecessarily. The point with having an earmark reserve, it does show to members that's what we think we are going to need that money for, rather than just having a big pool of money that
But
sits
the
there.
overall reserves are far greater than the ends reserves.
They don't, because the earmark reserves are there for things that we expect may be in expenditure, so.
First, then Fran and then Robin.
Well, thank you very much. I think my question 3.2 talks about the underspend. Well, if we go through the document, there's quite a lot of overspend. I know that's not been closed yet. Have we factored in the overspends we had? Because there are a few line items in there that had quite a lot of overspends. So on page,
It's very noisy with this time.
so on page 14, 3.2, which is the monies that are being sought to be earmarked, are rising as an underspend. But if we go through the document which we went through before, there's quite a lot of overspends in there already on other items. So are we, because we're not sure we have a balanced account yet. How have you factored that in?
I have the predicted expenditure column, we've gone down where we think we are going. Some things are still impossible to predict, obviously, but we are now quite a chunk of the way through the year. Is there a specific one that is concerning you?
Well, there are quite a few items in there that I saw that, so for example, the lodge, we had that, which was an expense which we had to incur. There was also the development around cemeteries and all that. But I'm just looking at the amount of overspends we have right at this time of the year. And you want to earmark this 28 for staff underspend. Considering we might have overspends overall, is it safe to earmark this, or should you use that to balance up the accounts?
I'm not expecting an overspend across the entire budget. I'm sorry, I'm missing the one that you're. The lodge.
So if, let's take the right page, so you have that on page 737, you've got that, you've got 312% increase. You've got the maintenance as well as 325% increase. So there are quite a few overspends across the entire accounts. And I'm wondering, you said you've done the account, so that's fine, as long as you're comfortable with that. I'm just worried that
They're not
with those numbers.
because they've transferred in from the earmark reserve. So the cemetery lodge, we knew we were going to decorate. So we were hoping to do it last year, but for various reasons, the discussions with. It happened this year, so we had earmark money, so that 7340 at the end transferred to and from earmark reserve. That is the money that paid for that, that's not an overspend.
Right, okay.
I'd like to second the proposal that we accept the clerk's recommendations.
Thank you. Right, so that's been seconded, let's go to the vote. So those who agree that it should go now to precept, please raise. Unanimous. Thank you. And thank you, Claire, for all of your sterling and hard work.
Yeah.
Okay, so item 7, fund transfers, there's none. Item 8, quarterly banking reconciliations. Maybe March meeting. 9, the Other Freedom of Information Act. So we've got a report there from Steve. And was to ask any questions on. I think the only question that I had was where it's now taken the town clerk out and in the compliance manager. If there, I don't know if it should have and or the town clerk, because you're responsible financial officer. So I was just a bit about taking you out of that document, because that's always been either yours or the deputy town clerk's responsibility. But I'm happy for members to disagree with me, or what do you think, first, Claire?
We need to have one single person whose delegated responsibility it is.
Okay.
It falls under compliance. It is a job of the compliance officer to make sure that we are compliant with these pieces of legislation, and that's why, just for clarity, we were going to change it to Steve.
Okay, but it's previously been your responsibility though, so is that because we've created Steve's position, so previously would have been yours or deputy clerk's responsibility?
Yes.
So it's changing now, but it wouldn't have if we didn't have
The
post.
practicality is that on a day-to-day basis, it's Steve that deals with it. This is just the monitoring person, it's him that actually does it.
Okay. All right, I did have John go up first, so John, then Anya, did you have your hand?
I think you've answered my question, but I'd like to come and just comment on that as well.
Okay, all right, so John first.
I'm at the same point, Lisa.
Okay.
I guess for me, Claire, you're the town clerk, you represent all the office of the town clerk.
Yeah.
And I think when people receive a response to their request for information, I think I don't know, I think it should initially go into at least the office of the town clerk or something like that. Because the compliance project manager is not an official post, yours will always be there will always be the town clerk, the second citizen of the town. So I would prefer it if the policy represented that. In practical terms, of course, it will be seen as work, we all know that. But I don't see why the policy needs to mention that post's name, when actually I think it's the responsibility of the town clerk to information in my view.
One of the, sorry, if I may, Chair, one of the other advantages of doing it is if the response initially comes from the compliance and projects manager and somebody wishes to escalate or query, it does give us a line to be able to do that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay, so Anya, Abby,
it's on the same point, am I right in assuming that if for some reason we suddenly no longer had a compliance manager, given it's a new job, I'm not saying it'll happen, but it would automatically fall back to the town clerk anyway to deal with these.
Yeah.
Queries.
Final officer, yeah.
So
Yeah. If for whatever reason he couldn't do it, it would fall back to you anyway. Yeah.
thank you, Abby.
Can I just clarify that point of the FOI? If there is an issue with the FOI from the council, appeals will go to the ICO, not to the town clerk. So once the council generates that document and it goes out, it's an official document from the council, and any appeals from that document will go to the ICO, not coming back to us. So I align and agree with John on this, that I'm of the strong opinion that should maintain that statutory, the statutory officer, who's the town clerk, as the designated person to receive the request. Whoever is delegated to can be anybody under the town clerk, but it will then come up from the town clerk's office, because the town clerk will be responsible for depending on whatever's written on it.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Robin and then John back.
My reading of it is, it doesn't matter what decisions that the council takes, the town clerk's ultimately responsible.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, all things covered. There's been no discussions about any role not being permanent. I don't think that was appropriate.
I wasn't implying that.
I think that was inappropriate. I think the role's permanent. So the fact that isn't, we've no staffing discussions around that. So the fact that the town clerk delegates a member of staff to do something is her right within the office to do that.
Absolutely.
And in the end, any decisions and the legal decisions around ramification then go back to the town clerk as a legal officer. So this is a position statement. And as the compliance officers moving forward, all those legal issues and round issues, and have been doing since they're joining the council, it doesn't seem illogical that they carry on moving through them compliance, because when we do stuff in confidential and have done, you will note that on those reports, it's the compliance officer who's moved those stuff forward. But that means that they're working in conjunction with the town clerk, separate, not in isolation, and it does at least mean that it's got some conformity. It's semantics who does it, but my view is that the report is sound and that I'm happy that the compliant officer does that, because otherwise we're setting a new staffing regime within the office. We can review it if we found it was an issue for a particular issue, but when the reports I've seen, which we've all read, it's always been done that way for some considerable time. So the other matters I don't discuss in the meeting really, but I'm happy with it, and I know they disquiet, but I think it's okay because it's overseen by the town clerk, as I said. So as long as it's overseen by the town clerk.
Sorry, Mel, John and then Jane.
Yeah, picking up what you say, town clerk, I appreciate that there could be an instance where somebody writes in to the compliance and projects officer and gets a response and wants to sort of say, I'm not happy with this, and then it comes back to you. And that's within the law already. there would be a kind of internal review system before the ICO would accept a referral anyway. Because the ICO always asks, have you exhausted all the various internal mechanism procedures before taking anything up anyway? But if that is the case, that's not in the policy. There's nothing in there about sort of second bite of the cherry, as it were, to the town clerk, should there be anything in there about that. Because if that is there, and I understand the reason why, it's not actually described, that sort of second bite of the cherry, as it were. So I'd be interested in your views on that, town clerk.
It isn't, I see your point. I mean, I would say that if anybody is unhappy with the response they get from any of my staff on anything, then it escalates up through.
But through the chair,
Reasonably ambivalent either way, really, John.
but through the chair, I would say that given that this is described by the law, you know, in a way, I don't know, complaining about a broken seat or something in Shambles Park is of a different nature to some issue about freedom of information, because this is described by law. It might be wise to maybe add in that procedure at some point, so it's clear to all, including anybody who wants to make a request.
May I double check, John? I'll be honest, Steve did write this report. I have a feeling he has used the pro forma wording of the ICO website.
Probably.
But I can't guarantee that, so I would need to double check that with him.
I'm not dying in a ditch.
That's a risky statement.
Jane and then Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony may have a better idea than I do, but I just feel that in this, you just need to mention the town clerk. I mean, quite right, what you've got down here, compliance and projects manager doing the paperwork and being delegated, but there needs to be a very, short statement about the town clerk's responsibility, or, we know that it's still the town clerk's ultimate responsibility to ensure compliance, because compliance is such an important thing, and heaven knows for local councils if it goes wrong. So I just wondered if there's the possibility of adding in a short statement just to note that the town clerk exists in this world.
Well, that's why my first suggestion was to just have in there and or the town clerk, so we're not taking it out, but adding in the compliance
Something like that,
officer.
I think the town clerk's role needs just to be noted in this particular one. And I'll defer to
Yeah, I'll be minded to have a meeting, Phil, so yeah. Anthony?
Just to clear in my mind, do the ICO recognise a compliance manager formally as a fit and proper position to be dealing with this? And if so, then I think it can be assumed that they will have a line manager, and consequently, if there's something that needs to be taken beyond the compliance manager, it will automatically go to his or her line manager, the town clerk. And I think that's implicit within such structures.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be my feeling.
We'll be entirely honest, I don't think the ICO list
No.
titles of who would be.
Well, then, if I may say, do they formally recognise town clerks in that way? And no, I don't think they do from the look in your eye. Yeah, you see my point.
I do see your point.
I mean, if a compliance officer is a recognised fit and purpose for dealing with this sort of stuff, then I would have thought everything else falls into place quite nicely.
Yeah.
Without overcomplicating it with, other branches.
Yeah, got the point. Fran and then Robin.
Thank you, Chair. So in a business, if you were putting out an FOI request document in this way, you would have the manager or person within that management structure who was tasked to deal with those things. You would not list the CEO as the next person
that's my point.
to do it. So therefore, I think that having the compliance officer, it will be understood by most people that he, as councillor Ralph rightly says, will have a line manager. You could actually list the whole structure of the council in there if you're wanting to be really picky about it. I think having the compliance officer as the person who you go to, you write to, because that is it, it's the point of contact that you are listing in here. The point of contact is the compliance officer. He's the person, or they are the person that you need to be writing to about it. The compliance officer will obviously, if they need to be consulting with the clerk or the deputy clerk on anything that they're not necessarily 100% au fait with. So therefore, I believe that as proposed, it's perfectly acceptable, and I would thank Steve for all his work on it. So I propose that we accept it as it is.
Thank you. I think it's been a really good conversation, actually.
Mm.
Okay, so before we move on, Robin, Howard and Andy, and then we'll move on.
I totally respect John. He's got more experience in the necessity of freedom of information requests than the average table. And I think John's been most successful at freedom of information requests. So in my time knowing John, he's probably had the necessity to make more freedom of information requests than the average councillor. So and to be fair to John, he's been quite successful in his getting responses, even though many of them have been heavily redacted, which is slightly, but I'm quite happy with it. I think the great thing about a council is we can review these things again. I think that the interest expressed has been great. How we want to do that in the future, if the town clerk found after talking to the person who drafted the report, the compliance officer, she would bring it back to us to be amended. But I don't think that would need to be the case. So I'm happy to second Councillor Davis' point that we agree.
The policies get looked at every year anyway, so yeah. Right, Andy, and then Howard, and then we're moving on.
Howard
and then Andy. Sorry.
Okay, I think Fanny's absolutely correct. You wouldn't normally list the organisation in, who you've got to reply to.
Yeah.
However, town councils are governed by a statute, the Local Government Act 1973. And I feel that you should have the town clerk because she is the requisite financial officer and head of all the services provided by the town council. And I would suggest putting compliance and projects and manager or town clerk.
So going back to what I first
What you
said.
said, yes.
Okay, Andy?
I'm sure people are aware, the moment you put on Buckingham Town Council, Information Commissioner's Office, they are aware that the town clerk is a legal officer of any council. Not just ours, but every council in this country has a town clerk and therefore is the legal officer, and everything must end up at their desk. So I don't know what the big fuss is about putting the name or not putting the name. It doesn't really matter because it's implicit that the thing will end up on the desk.
Okay. All right. I don't think we need
Can I just ask a
any
quick question?
further.
Just a quick question. If it's not addressed to the compliance officer, or rather to the town clerk, would it still be addressed?
Yes, of
Yeah.
course. I mean, most of it will just come to the office email, but we just need to have a full, for the paperwork, the contact.
I think this will be.
It's been a good conversation anyway. Thank you for all of your input on that. But yeah, so my screen just disappeared. So we're happy to move that forward. What's the recommendations? So can we have a vote that we all agree with the recommendations, please? Again, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. And can you say to Steve, thank you from all of us, please? Thank you. Right, so updates from representatives and outside bodies. Do we have anything? Not anybody. Yeah.
Just to make the point that the council's finances, if you have gone to the budget meeting, they are having to make quite difficult decisions. To be fair, Buckingham Council, if you look at it, there's a crucial reserve which isn't going in this year, which wouldn't have gone in. And I suggest that members, if they have interest in it, read the cabinet report and look at what's actually taking place rather than silo conversations. Also, when it comes to provision going forward, it looks quite difficult, and the finances of the council don't look particularly robust. So I think the fact that we've managed to get to where we have with what we're responsible with the proposal that we're going to preset is credit to our team here. So just please have a look at it. It will give you a greater understanding of what your council tax and Buckinghamshire Council will be making out and what it hasn't got in it anymore. I think that's something rather than mention individually.
Thank you, Anya.
Just to add very briefly to that I sit on the budget scrutiny committee, so I sat through 3 days of this and spent, I think, the best part of a week beforehand reading through it, and it's interesting. It's also hard. I'm not going to add, yes, we all know that principal authorities are having to get across the country. This is true. So if you are interested, do read the draft budget and then come to your own conclusions.
Thank you very much. No, that's everybody. Thank you. Action report, appendix E. Is there any comments on here? Okay. Right, so I don't have any announcement.
Go on, mate.
Happy New Year again.
That's good.
There you go. Date of next meeting is Monday, 3rd of March, and it's our grants meeting. That'll be a good one. Right, we're going to take our committee into private session now. I'll be happy that we go into